So I'd like to, again, Dr. Yemesi Jeffegula, she is with us from Nigeria. And we also have Dr. Benish Ali from Comstat, University of Islamabad, Pakistan. She was a Fulbright scholar at the Miller School of Medicine at the University of Miami, and she also came to Jefferson State. So one of the wonderful things about this is just kind of connecting full circle, because they've now returned to their home countries to take the knowledge that they gained while they were here, and they're sharing their personal experiences in their home country with us. And we want to thank you both so much for coming to visit with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Thank you.
So the format today will be that Dr. Jeffegula will speak first, and then followed by Dr. Benish Ali about the current situation with COVID-19 in Nigeria and Pakistan. And then what we will do is do some breakout rooms so everybody can do some individualized discussion. So I am going to admit some more people in from the waiting room, and we're going to get started. So Dr. Jeffegula, I thank you so much. I'll let you take over now. And if you need to change screens, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stacey. I appreciate you for this opportunity to be one of the presenters of the Global Lecture Series, and you have introduced me. And let me go to the second slides. I have my presentation outline, and we want to talk about what coronavirus is, the discovery of the outbreak, the current situation, level of preparedness when it happened, the impact of this on COVID-19 on Nigeria economy, the impact on educational system, and then we're also going to talk about if we have achieved any success stories from this, or is it all negative stories, impact. So, and we are going to talk about the failure about the coronavirus, the COVID-19, and at the end, I would appreciate everyone. And in the next slide, I have a question. It's, what is coronavirus? Now, we all know that coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that are known to cause illness, which ranges from common cold to more severe disease, the one we have used to, such as maybe SARS. SARS is very common to almost everyone in all countries. And we know that this coronavirus disease is an infectious disease that has been caused by newly discovered coronavirus. And in the next slides, we talk about how it came out, the outbreak. Actually, I'm a food microbiologist, and we always try to promote safety in most of the food around the world. And this outbreak was discovered in, it was first reported in Wuhan markets in China due to consumption of, from a contaminated bird, I guess. And this report, the reports came out in December 31st, according to 2020. And with this, when it happened in China, we had just very few fatality rates immediately when it happened, or we have the fatality rates of a case fatality rate of about 2%, and the disease had quickly spread over to 20 countries within a very short period. Within 1 month, it spread to like US, Europe, and some other countries. And then it was declared a public health emergency of international concern. And later in March 11, 2020, it was declared a pandemic disease, according to Panzin et al. 2020. And in the next slide, we are going to talk about the next slide, please. Next slide. So we talk about the epidemiological summary in Nigeria, how it entered Nigeria. It's got to the country Nigeria on 27th February 2020, when a foreigner was diagnosed. The foreigner traveled from his country to Nigeria, and it entered through a populous international airport. I'm still on the previous slide. Yeah, international airports. The first case was from there, and the following day on 4th of February, by 10 p.m. the case was confirmed, and then the COVID-19 situation began in Nigeria and up to now. So the next slides, we have the current COVID situation reports. The present COVID situation in the next slide. Okay, the current COVID situation in Nigeria indicated that so far we have about 415 cases of COVID, positive samples, individual positive for COVID-19. And out of it, we have been able to discharge about 51,308 cases. And we have in Nigeria, we have very high recovery rates, but we have just 1.9% of the deaths confirmed cases. And so that's the current situation as at October 6, 2020. And in the next slides, we have we are going to give the demographic structure of what has happened so far. Looking at the gender balance, looking at the gender incidence of those people that has been affected, it was discovered that male are more predominant than female. Among the people that have been affected, it was observed that 64% of them were male, while 36% of them were female. And the most affected age brackets have been between 31 to 40 age group, and we have about 27% of them. And looking at the mode of transmission, it has been like through travel history and then the contact with individual. And knowing fully well that Nigeria is a country of population of over 200 million. We have over 200 million population in Nigeria. And then in Nigeria, we have 36 states, and we have one state, which is the seat of capital, making it to be 37. And with this, even at that, the prevalence rate of COVID-19 has not been as worse as some other countries have it. And in the next slides, we have the epidemiological curve of confirmed cases, where we have the death rates very low, while the people that are alive, the recovery rate is so high. And in the slides that we talked about age, sex distribution cases, I said it's that male, according to the reports gathered from those people that have that's age, sex distribution cases. According to the report we have observed from the data, it was observed that male are more prone to COVID-19 infection than female. That's the report we gathered from Nigeria. Can you go to the next slides? Okay, when we look at the next slide, please, when we look at the level of preparedness and response to this COVID-19 when it first came out, it happened in 27th of February, 2020. Immediately, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control released some kind of advisories and statements, including guidelines and protocols that will help people to contain the COVID-19. And then the following day, they set up a multi-sectoral emergency operations centers, and which was activated at level 3, and which is the highest level of emergency operation in Nigeria, which was led by Nigerian Center for Disease Control in close coordination with the State Public of Health. And with that, in the next slide, just go to the next slide. We have the statistics of, in the next slide, we have the statistics of how we have been able to recover compared to the world um, infection. In Nigeria, we have the total cases of 59,000 plus out of 35.9 million in the world, and the recovery rate is as presented. Because of our time, I won't be able to talk much about that now. Let's go in the next slide to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on Nigerian economy. Here we have, because of the COVID-19, in order to contain the COVID-19 situation in Nigeria, it was we had a total lockdown in the country, and then the restriction of the movement affected so many things in the country. It affected the economy of the country, the events, and where people generate money for individual, for governments was shut down. It was restricted. It affected a lot of things to the extent that it affected our Nigeria is a country that depends so much on oil, and it was during that time that the price of oil was reduced all over the world, and so it affected the amount of money generated into the country. And in the next slides, we know that the Nigerian economy is currently facing collapse as it's likely dependent on oil exportation. And the oil market has been a downfall trend as COVID-19 has crippled the demand. So since we have the price of oil in the next slide, since we have the price of oil that is less than $22 per barrel, and we still believe that it's still going to grow, it's going to be lower than that. We're looking at impact of this on household consumption. We look at the impact of the COVID-19 on household consumption. There is a fall in the household consumption, which has caused consumers to spend on essential goods and services. And then this has really also affected some workers in the country. You can go to the next slides, and it has really affected the wealth, and there is a decline in assets in the country, such as stock exchange and so many things in Nigeria. But we are trying to come up. And you look at the effect of COVID-19 on the educational system in the country, we discover that the closure of schools, because when it happens in March, because we had to close everything in March when it happened. So this closure of all schools at different level in Nigeria in order to contain the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please. COVID-19 situation, it's affected the educational system in the country, whereby the syllabus was altered, and school children and students had to sit at home, and they had to cancel. Some students that wanted to write exam before the lockdown, they had to cancel or reschedule their date of exam. So it affected so many things about the educational system in Nigeria, but we're trying to come up with another solution right now. And from what has happened so far, we were able to also record some positive, some success things. So though we lost, some lives were lost, and some people were sick, and we are not happy about the situation. We're talking about the success stories now on the next slides. We're not happy about the situation whereby some lives were lost, but from it, we still recorded some success stories. Like, from what has happened, we observed that, oh, if something terrible like this is going to happen later, are we all going to sit down at home for 1 year, 10 years? So we came up with programs that can help our educational system by advancement in distant learning education. That has been improved on. You can have your BSc program like in my university right now. You can study in my university without coming to the university. You're going to do your online exam. You're going to do your lectures online. For people that want to do on-ground program, we also have facilities for online. And this has been what is being encouraged right now in all institutions in Nigeria. It has also transformed education through remote learning and dynamic online educational and vocational video platform, and development of e-learning tools. You know, design of these tools has been enhanced just because of this COVID-19. All these were not there initially. It was only few institutions that were practicing it, but right now, almost on institutions in Nigeria are looking into this direction. So we recorded the success stories. In the next slides, we talk about the failure about COVID-19. Initially, people thought that science has lost the battle against COVID-19. You know, they thought, oh, we couldn't handle it. But I want to tell you, science is currently winning in the battle. Science is winning in the battle, and we are happy about that. And it seems like the only thing that I am thinking about, and the perspective of so many people, is that politics has won in the battle, you know. But I won't say more than that. Politics has seriously won in the battle of COVID-19. And science is gaining ground because we have been able to develop some formulations. In the next slides, Nigerian researchers have come up together, and some has developed some medications, and while some are still developing some medications like herbal medications that are effective against COVID-19 for prevention and for treatment. And this has really helped us a lot. So these are the success stories we have been able to derive from this. And even another success stories that was not on the slides is like some people were able to discover themselves because they had opportunity to sit at home and rediscover themselves. And in religious context, they have opportunity to know that they can serve God anywhere without going to anywhere. So those are the success stories that have been recorded so far. And in the second to the last slides, I would like to appreciate Stacey for this opportunity you have given unto us. My appreciation started when I visited Jefferson City College. You accommodated me into your house and you took care of me like your sister, and I'm grateful for that. I thank Jefferson State Community College for this opportunity. And I have to appreciate Fulbright, because if not for Fulbright, I wouldn't have had opportunity to meet Jefferson Stacey. And I thank my university for always releasing me to do global, anything that has to do with global impartation. Thank you for listening. That's the end.
Dr. Jeff Agula, thank you so much. That's very informative and kind of catching everybody up on where we are with the coronavirus in Nigeria. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Banish Ali in Pakistan. Dr. Ali, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you all. So can you hear me?
There, now we can hear you, yes.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Should I start the talk?
Yes, please, feel free. Go ahead. Technology is a wonderful friend and a not wonderful friend. as y'all discovered from my technology woes this morning. Sorry about that.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Here we go.
We can.
Thank you very much for the wonderful and informative talk, Dr. Yomesi. I hope I called your name correctly. Yomesi?
Yes.
Okay.
You're
Thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful talk. And it's good to know that Nigeria has successfully almost won that battle against COVID-19. And so I'm going to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic in Pakistan, that how it worked out over here in my country. And this is the brief content. So I'm going to talk about the pandemic, then situation in Pakistan, comparison with selected regions, timeline, and then flattening of curve in Pakistan, and then the final remarks. So COVID-19 pandemic. So we know that this is an infectious disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2, which is a coronavirus from the family of coronaviruses. And this is basically a zoonotic virus that is transmitted to humans accidentally, right? So we know that it transmitted from bats to pangolins and then from pangolins to humans. And this causes the disease, which is known as the COVID-19 disease, and it affects multiple organs in the body. And in December 2019, first case was reported in Wuhan, China. And then on 11th March 2020, it was declared a pandemic by WHO. And globally, right now, there are 3.5 million cases, and including 1.3 million deaths. So I think I read it correctly. It's 35 million or 35 million cases. Okay. So COVID-19 in Pakistan. So here in the background, you can see that we have the curve flattened. So let's see how we did it. So Pakistan, as you know, is located in South Asia, and it is among the low and middle income countries with population of around 222 million. And the first two cases in Pakistan were reported on February 29, 2020. And the first COVID-19 death was reported on March 19. And as of October 7, like yesterday, we have 316,351 confirmed cases, and out of which 301 and 288 cases, they have been fully recovered. And the total deaths reported are 8,000, I think I reversed these things. So the total deaths, they are actually 6,535. And the total number of active cases right now are over 8,000. So Pakistan has been a success story in terms of the coronavirus pandemic because we have our curve flattened in Pakistan. So this is the overall distribution of cases as of yesterday, October 7. And this is the relative situation among different administrative divisions of Pakistan. And this is also the relative situation among different divisions of Pakistan. So we can see that the highest number of cases have been reported from the Sindh province, while Punjab is second, and Punjab is the most populous province, by the way, but this is second highest in terms of the number of coronavirus infections. And this is also a quick statistics of the total cases among different parts of Pakistan, total recovered, active cases, and deaths. And here is the distribution curve, the number of COVID-19 cases. And on the graph on the right side, you can see that there are daily new COVID-19 cases in Pakistan. And you can see that this follows a very smooth curve, which has now very much flattened. And here is the outcome distribution, the cases which had an outcome. And out of these cases, there are 2% cases who died due to coronavirus and related complications. And there are 98% cases who got fully recovered. So this is the outcome distribution. And this is a comparison of the total confirmed and active cases. And you can see that there is a huge gap now developed between the total number of cases and the active cases. So the number of active cases has gone down to very low levels in Pakistan. And this is because we have recoveries in bulk. So the patients, they are recovering in bulk and they are recovering quite soon. So therefore, we have a large gap between the active cases and the confirmed cases. And this is because and for this reason, we don't have much of the burden on our medical facilities. And this is the testing procedure. So we have rapidly increased our testing capability. And this is the relationship between the number of tests conducted daily and the number of positive cases coming out on daily basis. And now a comparison with the selected regions. So here is a comparison of Pakistan cases with USA, India, and Iran and China. Right, so USA tops the number of incidences in COVID-19 cases in the world. And then we have India on the second number, and then Iran and China. So I have mentioned Iran and China because these are the neighboring countries of Pakistan. And China was the first country where we found the COVID-19 case. And in Pakistan, the first case that was reported in Pakistan, that was the person who actually traveled from Iran. So Iran was dealing with the worst COVID-19 outbreak at that time, and Pakistan was free of any cases. But obviously, people who were visiting Iran due to some religious purposes, they had to come back. And some of these people, they escaped the quarantine facilities, and they caused the local transmission in Pakistan. And this is a comparison of the tests performed per 1 million of population. So you can see that USA has performed most of the tests. And these are the total cases per 1 million population. Again, you can see that USA has the highest number of cases per 1 million population. And these are the deaths per 1 million population. And now the timeline in Pakistan. So the first case appeared in late February, and this was the person, like I said, they traveled from Iran and they escaped the quarantine, and then the local transmission started. So then in the mid-March, when the number of cases were increasing, our government decided for a nationwide lockdown, and there was closure of all businesses and all educational institutes. Traveling within the country was prohibited, and then the limited religious gatherings were allowed. So the religious gatherings on a large scale, they were prohibited, and limited religious gatherings were allowed only. And this lockdown was not sudden. So this is something good about our government strategy, that when they started the lockdown, it was pre-informed. So it wasn't a sudden lockdown, and everyone knew that we are going into a nationwide lockdown, and there was enough time for everyone to prepare. So this was a pre-informed lockdown. Therefore, it wasn't as devastating as in some neighboring countries. And then government immediately started the relief efforts. And this lockdown, the nationwide lockdown, it was started with varying intensities across the countries. In the large cities like Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi, there was a strict lockdown enforcement by the authorities. But smaller towns and the rural areas, they didn't follow the lockdown much strictly. So there was a varying intensity by which people followed the lockdown in different parts of the country. And then in the late May, the Supreme Court of Pakistan ordered the government to open the markets because a religious festival was coming. So court said that people, they need to do shopping, and the markets, they should be open. So markets were opened in the mid of the pandemic by the court orders, and government issued the standard operating procedures for opening of the markets, which were followed again to varying extent from different people, from different populations. And the large-scale religious gatherings occurred, and small and medium businesses, they were made operational. And this resulted into a dreadful peak because the restrictions, many restrictions, they were certainly open. The markets were open, the religious gatherings were allowed. And so we saw a peak. We saw a dreadful peak in the COVID-19 cases, and the hospitals, they were full to the capacity. And June 13 was the day when we recorded the highest number of cases in a day, which were over 6,000. And June 20 was the deadliest day when we reported 153 deaths in a single day. So this was the peak season of the coronavirus pandemic in Pakistan. And then we started to see a decline in cases. So there was a dramatic change in situation. There was a rapid decline in the number of cases, and this was probably because there was a surge in recovery, because people, they were getting recovered in mass numbers. So therefore, there was less burden on the hospitals. And then the government introduced a strategy of smart lockdowns, and which proved to be very effective because the markets were opened because of the court orders, and the religious gatherings, they were also occurring. So government introduced the policy of smart lockdown, in which the limited neighborhoods or the hotspots of the COVID-19 infection, they were locked down, and rest of the areas, they were open. And on July 24, we saw the highest number of recovered cases in a day, which were over 16,000, with only 1,500 new cases. So this imbalance between the recoveries and the number of new infections, so that was the main reason that our hospitals, they had a sigh of relief and there was less burden on the hospitals. And then by the mid-August, most of these restrictions were lifted. All businesses were opened. Tourist places within the country, they were all opened. And the restaurants, they were allowed for dine-in, and traveling of all sorts within the country, that was allowed with the condition of following the SOPs issued by government. So it seemed in mid-August that our life is back to normal. So from a dreadful peak during the month of June, we came back to a normal life in mid-August. So that was quite surprising, that how we managed to decline these numbers. So there was a decrease from 6,000 to 7,000 cases a day in the peak period to 600 to 700 cases in September, right? So we saw this much rapid decline in the number of cases, even though the restrictions were lifted. And then from the mid-September, the educational institutes were reopened. There was a stepwise reopening of the educational institutes. And then the government adopted a mini smart lockdown strategy. And now our life is back to normal, and most of the restrictions, they have been lifted, and it's perfectly normal in Pakistan right now. So we have minimum number of cases. There was a little surge in cases after the reopening of educational institutes, but that wasn't too much. So this is almost back to normal. So is this a victory? Is this the point to celebrate? So apparently it seems it's a point to celebrate, but first we need to identify that what are the causes behind this mysterious decline in the number of cases in Pakistan. So here we will like to discuss some of the likely causes. So first of all, the government strategies. So these two men, they are behind. So the person on the left is our Prime Minister, and the person on the right side is the in charge of the National Command and Control Center for combating COVID-19 outbreak in Pakistan. So these two people, they are the brains behind this strategy. So first of all, we should appreciate the government strategy in awareness and information dissemination. They took the religious scholars on board because Pakistan is the Muslim majority country and more than 90% of the population is Muslim. So the religious scholars, they were taken on board, and they instructed people, they told people to follow the instructions issued by the government, to follow the lockdown and precautions. So religious scholars were taken on board. And then the government initiated a massive awareness campaign. And there were a launch of a couple of applications, the smartphone applications, and the phone caller tune. So like whenever you're going to dial a number, whenever you're going to call someone, the caller tune would start playing, saying that what precautions you should follow and what is the situation right now. So there was a massive information campaign by government, and media was actively involved. And then the relief efforts. So government started an emergency cash program in which the cash was distributed among the needy individuals. And we already have a welfare program running by the name of Ehsas. So then the COVID-19 emergency protection plan, that was also included into the Ehsas program. And then the cash was distributed among needy people because the businesses were closed, and obviously there was a fear of economic collapse, and therefore government said that we want to distribute cash, we want to provide relief to our poor people. So that is why the cash was distributed among the needy people. And then there were marathon transmissions on different TV channels for generation of funds, and our Prime Minister was the part of those transmissions to gather those funds, because our Prime Minister himself is a humanitarian. So whenever he calls for donations from people, they love to donate from all across the world. So he ran the marathon transmissions on media to generate funds so that they can be distributed into the needy people. And then Prime Minister initiated the Prime Minister's Tigers Relief Force. So this force consisted of volunteer young people, and they went into the markets and they went into the local neighborhoods, and they raised awareness among people that why following precautions is necessary and how deadly this pandemic could be. So this was the awareness campaign that was run on the root level. And the construction industry was reopened in the mid of the pandemic. And the reason to reopen the construction industry was because it provides employment to a lot of people. So therefore, our Prime Minister said that we are going to open the construction industry so that there is no economic collapse. And the government introduced the smart lockdown strategy. And it was a very difficult decision to reopen businesses in the mid of the pandemic, but the government had to decide between the COVID-19 associated burden and poverty. Because if they continued with the nationwide lockdown, with the complete lockdown, then we would fall into an economic collapse. And that would have been worse than the COVID-19 burden, because the mortality rate that we were observing in COVID-19 was only 2%, but the poverty associated deaths and the poverty associated illnesses, they could have outscaled the COVID-19 burden. So therefore, government decided to ease the lockdown and introduce the smart lockdown. So this was basically the track, trace, and quarantine strategy, in which the contacts were traced and then the hotspots were locked down instead of entire cities. And then gradually government resorted to the mini smart lockdown strategy, which is still operational. And in this strategy, not the entire neighborhoods are locked down. Instead, only the selected streets and buildings, they are locked down. And then the manufacture of supportive material. There was a massive scale production of masks, PPEs, and sanitizers, and there was a boost in the production of medical equipment like ventilators. So we have a very poor health infrastructure. But as we got struck with this outbreak of COVID-19 and there was a large scale need of ventilators, so government decided to boost up the industry for the production of ventilators. So that provided employment, and as well as it provided the much needed ventilators to the hospitals. And there was permission granted to researchers for designing rapid testing procedures. And then government allowed, or they approved, the plasma therapy for the treatment of COVID-19. So plasma therapy is basically the infusion of plasma from a recovered COVID-19 case into an active COVID-19 case. So as soon as doctors, the health practitioners, they started to see that this strategy is going to be effective, so they asked the government to allow this therapy, and government immediately allowed this therapy. And this proved to be very good, because the recovery rate after the implementation of this therapy was very, very good. So we saw a peak in the rate of recoveries after the adoption of this plasma therapy. And then the response from people. So response from people was mixed. So this is a fact that there is a low reporting. The actual number of COVID-19 cases in Pakistan might be much, much greater than they have been reported. And why there is a low reporting? Because of the stigma of isolation and the conspiracy theories, because people, they always cook the conspiracy theories that this is some excuse by the government to hide the economic downfall, and maybe this is a conspiracy by government to fetch more funds and hospitals to earn more money from people. So there were a lot of conspiracy theories going on, and some people, they were in a state of denial that there is no COVID-19, there is no coronavirus, so this is just a made-up story. So these conspiracy theories, they also led people to believe that there is no such infection and they shouldn't report if they are feeling any symptoms. And also we have a general careless attitude, because we generally have a strong immunity and we recover from mild infections very quickly, and we don't even have to visit a medical facility upon mild infection. So there was a general careless attitude that we are hard and fast people and we don't need to go to hospitals if we get infected by a virus. And then there were large number of asymptomatic cases. So, and this is also attributed to the strong immunity, that although they got infection, but they didn't show any symptoms because their immune system, it tackled the infection. So they didn't fall ill. And then people, they went for self-medication, for herbal and OTC medicines. And people, they exercised precautions, especially during initial nationwide lockdown. And people, they also contributed into charity work. So charity works both by the government and by the local communities. They were a very important tool in going through this pandemic, because there was an economic downfall. People were losing their jobs, but the government and the local communities, they were going for the charity work. So they adopted the charity work, because Pakistanis in general, they love to donate. And therefore people, they started this charity work, and so that people, they can be convinced to not to go to the work in wake of pandemic. So that helped a lot in exercising the precautions. And then the seroprevalence or herd immunity, and there was a study done in Karachi, which is the largest metropolitan of Pakistan, with a population of over 20 million. And 36% of the population of Karachi was found to have developed immunity. It means that they were exposed to the virus already, and they had developed the antibodies. In most of these cases, they were asymptomatic. And this immunity, this seroprevalence, was highest among the industrial employees. That makes sense, because they're exposed to virus. And this percentage of the seroprevalence in Pakistan, this is much greater than the other parts of the world. Like in US, it is just 1.9 to 6.9%. In Switzerland, it is 10.8%. In Spain, it is 5%. But in Pakistan, the largest metropolitan of Pakistan, about 2 months back, it was 36%. And the same researchers who did this study, they were speculating that over a couple of months, we are going to achieve the 60% target, the 60% threshold of herd immunity if the situation continues. So most probably we are on our way to develop the herd immunity in our population. And another reason for success is the young population, because 4% of Pakistan's population is over 65. So most of the population in Pakistan comprises of young people, and young people, they are usually stronger and they are more immune to infections as compared to the elderly people. There are 16% elderly people over the age of 65 in US, and 23% in Italy. And the average age in Pakistan is 22 years, which is quite young. And it is a decade younger than Brazil, and it is 25 years younger than Italy. So in March or April, when we were seeing the massive number of fatalities in Italy, so they were attributed to the old age of their population. But in Pakistan and in other young populations, we haven't recorded that much fatality rate, because the population comprises of young individuals. So likewise, in India, the mortality rate is low because the Indian population also comprises of young individuals. So that might be the reason that the fatality rate is low, and also the population has responded in quite effectively in response to this infection. So in the end, is this a real victory? So I'm going to put some quotes from our Prime Minister and Mr. Asad Omar, who is who is leading the fight against coronavirus in Pakistan. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stacy. And thank you very much, Jefferson State, for giving me a chance to talk about this coronavirus pandemic, especially with reference to Pakistan. And any questions? So
Yeah.
I think this is.
We actually have a couple of questions that have been put out. I got a couple in an email and one that popped in chat. So I'll direct the first one to both of you. Dr. Jeffabullah, you still where you can hear us and respond?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I have a question from Abdul Kadir Magoro. He's from Nigeria, but he did a master's in Pakistan, so he knows both your countries quite well. And his question is to both of you, considering the contagious levels of this disease and how it affected countries like China, the US, and also where I stay here in South Korea, the measures taken by the government and how citizens accept and follow the rules of the two developing countries is unarguably discouraging. And that made me believe that people were contracted and healed with the help of their immune system. If that is true, shall we worry about the future, that the virus may have some effect in the future, as some researchers are speculating?
Wow. Maybe you should be able to summarize the question.
So basically, he's saying that the actions taken by the governments and how the citizens follow the rules in the two developing countries is discouraging. And it makes him believe that people were healed because of their immune systems, much like Dr. Ali was saying with the younger populations. But he's asking about, should we worry about the future, that the virus may have some effect in the future, as some researchers are speculating. I hope I said that right.
But to me, I believe that the action taken by Nigerian government was encouraging. It wasn't discouraging, because they did all their best in order to contain the virus initially, because they had to set up, contacted the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. I remember when I came back from America in March, and when I go back to Nigeria, I saw the way the Center for Nigerian Center for Disease Control was able to contact me because I had to do the 14 days isolation period. During that period, how they were contacting me on 3 times in a week. They will call and they will find out if I have any symptoms, and they were also calling some members of my family that maybe in order to confirm if I was okay and stuff like that. So it's because of the action put in place by this government, most especially Nigerian government, that really helped us. And then one of the actions were like for us to have a total shutdown in the whole country, and many things that they did. So I believe that the government of Nigeria really tried their best in order to contain this virus. And in the way forward, we need not to be afraid, because right now we are, the scientists, the researchers are really working. Now, when you look at the trends of the research right now, starting from 2020, January, it has been COVID-19. And so many organizations are encouraging people to go into research about COVID-19, the COVID, and the effect on so many things and how to curb it. And governments are also trying to develop some kind of vaccine, but though people are saying it's still a conspiracy theory, but we believe that they are trying in their own way and in different level, at different level. And again, government also gave out some maybe standards, provision for people to stay at home. And they enforced the law and order. They developed protocols. They did all their best. All their best. The best might not be good to some people, but they try in their own best to safeguard the life of people in our country. So that's my perspective to that.
There's another question that's been put into the chat. The first one was a question from Abraham Olabeyi. I hope I said that right. What is the secret behind the plasma therapy? This is, I believe, in obtaining the rapid recovery rate from COVID-19 in Pakistan. Dr. Ali?
Sorry for the interruption. Actually, I'm having a very severe allergic reaction because of exposure to the basement mold. So that is why I had a problem in delivering the talk as well. Okay, so you're talking about the plasma therapy, right? So researchers, they are still working on that. What are the active molecules? What are the active cytokines in the plasma that actually help in recovering? So this was just an idea that doctors practice on a limited number of patients, that if we infuse the plasma from recovered patients into the active cases, because there were a large number of active cases in the country and the hospitals, they were being overburdened. So they just tried this one, that if we are going to infuse the plasma, maybe that contains the active cytokines, which help these people recover effectively, so or quickly. So they just infused the plasma from recovered cases into the active cases, and that showed some very encouraging results. And that is why government approved this plasma therapy immediately. And this plasma therapy was applied on large scale, and people who were recovering, they donated generously. They donated their plasma for the active cases. And this is how the hospitals, they were able to bring down the burden, and they were able to we were able to see more recoveries on a large scale. So probably we need to figure out that what are the molecules, what are the cytokines in the plasma that actually help in fighting this infection. So this is a question. So this was something in which we saw the outcome first, and this is kind of the back tracing, that now we saw the response and we saw the successful response, and now we are going back to see that what caused this success.
Okay.
So this is some kind of a reverse research.
So I have another question regarding the contact tracing. How did citizens react to government asking questions about their private lives? Were citizens open about telling their health information? That could be addressed to either of you, I believe.
Yeah, oh, maybe I should answer that first, because it happens to me when I came back from the US. Yeah, initially I wasn't happy that why do they have to contact my family about, I was surprised that they got all our contact details, and at the same time I remember that I supply all my details, and how they were able to identify where I was isolated was also a mystery to me. And but I was like, how did these people, why do they have to trace everything about me? And I was initially embarrassed, but later I sat down and decided, I need to embrace what they are doing. So I had to call them one day that, okay, then it was like remaining like 5 days before my my isolation period. I called them that if I don't show any symptoms, if I don't have any issue, I am going to join you in this fight, so that I'm ready to surrender myself as a volunteer to volunteer to join you in this fight. I was impressed later, but I was not happy initially. And the same thing with so many people that have asked questions from about their feelings about the NCDC contacting them, and they felt so embarrassed. But toward the end, they discovered that it was okay for them. It's for our health, it's for our safety. So that was why I said our government really tried their best in order to make sure that we are all safe.
So we are now going to take a pause from the public lecture, and we're going to actually break up into breakout rooms so that everybody can have a smaller group discussion. And Dr. Jeffek Bula helped me pick a couple of questions. We want to know, what lessons have you learned, positive or negative, through this pandemic? And what new and innovative ideas have you seen during this period? And what do you see that can be improved upon existing practices? So we're going to break out for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come out. And if one of you from each group could please choose to speak at large, that would be a great addition to this discussion. So I'm going to pause our recording since we can't do breakout rooms, and I'll break you out in just a moment.
Or just happiness, or just the ability to see kind of past that darkness. And then we talked about what can be improved. I think we had two main ones. One, be kindness. Human ability to take down other people is like, yeah, competing, and I'm going to push you down as much as I can. But if we can just be kind to one another, and I know that's all rosy and happy, but it's a good plan. And then one of us said, everybody is someone. And I love that, because the notion is that you as a person, you may be a small piece of the larger puzzle of your country or your state or your world, but you are someone. And whether it's kindness that you're bringing, or hope, or a scientific discovery, or what have you, you are someone. And that was our group's discussion.
Wow.
That was great. So would somebody from group 2 summarize what you discussed?
I think we were to, and I appoint Abdul.
Yeah.
Is he still here?
Yes, he is.
Abdul Kadir, would you mind summarizing for your group?
Yeah, let me try. We discuss about how people accept and how they deny at the same time the existence of COVID-19, especially in the developing countries. And we tried to share some ideas on what are the possible reasons. For example, we labeled religion as one of the major reasons. For example, in Nigeria, it's very difficult to convince people to stop going to church and mosque, also in Pakistan. So that's one of the main reasons, I think, why Pakistan government involved religious leaders, and it worked for them to flatten the curve. Also, we discuss about the environment in South Korea, because it was kind of amazing. Like, South Korea is very close to China, and just of a sudden they flattened their curve. So people were really surprised, how does it happen? And the answer was, by default, they work like a community. So they are always like answerable to their elders, and they don't go against the rules. So that's the main secret why they were able to flatten their curve. That's in summary.
Very good. Thank you so much. Does anybody else, since our group is only 12 now, we're smaller, does anybody else have questions that they want to ask at large?
I'm sorry, Brooke, did you have one? You need to unmute yourself. No? Okay. I wanted to address this to Dr. Ali. You mentioned that there were resistances, people who felt it was a conspiracy theory, and the question I wanted to ask was, how did Pakistan, the government, the leaders, the medical community, the religious community, how did they combat that attitude?
So still, there is a majority of the people who are still in the state of denial, although they have seen it all, but still they are in a state of denial. So Pakistani population, Pakistani community is a very strange and interesting community, right? So this is this was a global pandemic, and every country was concerned, and every country was in a state of lockdown, and every country was suffering, and people were chilling out here. And they were waiting for the lockdown to get open, and so that they could start partying and everything. They could start hugging each other. And outside of the major cities, there was never a true lockdown. So people, they were always saying, oh, what is coronavirus? Has anybody seen a coronavirus? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? So people, they had a mixed response, and they were saying that there is no such thing. And this is a conspiracy theory. And even the religious scholars, although the leading religious scholars, they supported government in their in implementing the SOPs and in implementing the lockdown. But still, the other religious scholars, they were also in a state of denial, unfortunately, and they were still allowing the religious gatherings in mosques and everywhere. So some of the people, they got convinced, and most of the people, they didn't. So they are still in a state of denial that no, there is nothing of a sort like coronavirus or something like that.
I wonder if that state of denial is not part of the serious problem that we have here in the United States because of
Yeah, so this is like Pakistan without this serious attitude, because we had a very non-serious attitude towards this pandemic, as far as majority of the population is concerned, and especially in the rural areas and small cities. And also because we have a very poor health infrastructure. Although we have a large number of doctors, we have the highest ratio of doctors to general population in the developing world. So we have a lot of doctors here, and especially the female doctors. But still, we have the poor health infrastructure. And despite of that, we combated. So this has also reinforced the idea of denial, that they are now saying that there was no such thing, and you can see that we are not dying of anything. So still it was like, so it was a mystery that despite these constraints, despite these economic constraints, besides these infrastructure, lack of facilities and lack of infrastructure, still we flattened our curve. So what is the mystery behind? So if you just Google it, that how Pakistan flattened the curve, the immediate results that you're going to get at is, it's a mystery. How? So every other person is asking how Pakistan was able to do that. So in my opinion, I think three factors are important. The first one is the smart lockdown strategy, which has been acknowledged by World Health Organization as well, that this strategy that Pakistan adopted was a very effective strategy. So instead of the nationwide lockdown, we had the smart lockdown, and now we have the mini smart lockdown. So this was one thing. And the second thing was that our government immediately approved the use of plasma therapy. So that reduced the burden on hospitals to a very large extent. And then the government opened on a limited scale, it opened the small businesses and construction industry. So people who are poor and people who are already immune to a lot of infections, because they are strong people, they are young and they're immune to a lot of infections already. So they were able to cope up, and there were a lot of asymptomatic infections. So I think these were the main factors that we overall got the herd immunity, that it kind of buffered into our society, into our population.
I have a follow-up.
But it's still a mystery. It's still a mystery. It's still a mystery.
It's a good thing, though. But I have one more follow-up question. How effective do you feel that the mobile app was in approaching the population?
Yeah, it was important in keeping in touch with the daily COVID score, because people would ask, oh, how many these many people have died, or these many people have contracted the disease. So it was good in the dissemination of information, and it was good in finding out the hotspots of coronavirus infection. So people, they were avoiding those areas, that these are the hotspots, so we should avoid traveling or going to those areas. So it was effective in this scenario. And many people, they're still checking the government website on regular basis to see the updates on coronavirus.
Thank you for indulging my questions. That was very, very informative.
Does anyone else? We have time for one more question. Anybody?
I have a follow-up, if I could jump in on that. And looking at the notion of disseminating information and getting, an app and checking a government website. And again, this is coming from, seeing this on the side of the US, where we have the CDC website and we have, stats every day. How trustworthy, and again, maybe this is weird US conspiracy about fake news, and who knows, you never can tell. You get this number of deaths one day, and then you get something reported next day that says, oops, well, not all of those were corona deaths, it was this. So how trustworthy is the app and the government website seen as?
Yeah, again, because people, as I said, that there were many people who still don't believe in the pandemic, who still don't believe that there is something like coronavirus infection or pandemic over here in Pakistan. But the government that we now have in Pakistan, so this is a bit different. So I'm afraid this is going to be a political remark, but this is unfortunately part of the discussion. So the government that we have right now has got support of a majority of Pakistanis, and the prime minister, the head of the government that we have right now, he is a humanitarian himself, right? And he's among the most trustworthy people in Pakistan. So people believe in him, that he is a very honest and upright person. So that is why the things that the information that he conveys, so people, they trust him. So this is a matter of, so this is again a kind of a blessing that we have such kind of a prime minister in this critical time. Otherwise, if we had a corrupt prime minister, people, including the educated people, they would not be trusting government sources. They were saying that this is all fake and everything. But because our head is an honest person in his own in his own character, so that is why people trust him, that he's telling us the right thing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That's one of the questions I know I had sent Stacy, and I'm not, familiar with the government, and I know the prime minister is appointed, I guess, by Parliament, and there's a term of so many years, and I just wondered how that played in to, and he seems like he has the good of the country at his heart or what have you. But I just wondered how supportive people under him or people who elected him were. So thank you so much. I appreciate your answers.
Well, everyone, this
I-
concludes our, oh, go ahead. You have another question, Abdul Qadir?
Yes, please.
Go
I have a
ahead.
question to Dr. Emisi.
Okay.
I read it in news because I am from Kano.
Okay.
So, like during the middle of the pandemic, the state government used to allow people to go for like shopping on Mondays and Thursdays. Then in between, it will be a lockdown. So when I saw some pictures and some videos, like you will see like crowded environment when people went for shopping like that. So, and after that, you will still see like 100 cases in a day. But after like few days, you will see like 5 cases, 10 cases. Again, you will see like 300. Based on my experience in South Korea, like it doesn't, should I say, it doesn't make sense how they are releasing the number of the cases, even with the crowd and everything. So that made me to believe like there are some unfolded loop. Yeah, but
Yeah.
how can you explain that?
Yeah. Actually, what happened was initially when there was total lockdown, nobody was allowed to mix with one another. So as time goes on, um, when they started discovering that the recovery rate was getting higher, and so they started uh, the lockdown was no longer like total lockdown. It was like, okay, so this place that total you could go out during a particular time and come back. Actually, when I heard that, I wasn't happy myself, because I wanted to find out if these people really know the time coronavirus is going to infect someone, and they know the time is not going to when they know the time that it's not going to contaminate someone. And that was why I wrote in my presentation that it's like politics has won the battle. So it's at a point I was like, people started thinking like, are they using this for political gain or what? If you had us to stay at home, that there is danger outside, why are you allowing us to go out and come back and give us timetable? They gave timetable for the time that people could go out. Like in the states where I am, when they wanted to start, they started by opening the market. And the market is a place whereby we have large number of people and gather together. And at the end of the day, they will come out with a number of tested people. One of the things that I discovered about the results so far is like the testing. There is low testing rates. Yeah, they don't really have much facilities to test individual, maybe due to our population. We only have few test centers and few test testing equipment. I guess that was what informed the very low responses to all this. But as many people that were tested, majority of them were positive for coronavirus. So I don't really know what happened along the line. Maybe it has to do with the level of immunity of the individual, that they were able to, on their own, treat themselves. And you know that in Nigeria, we normally have malaria. It's like it's something that is common to us, and the symptoms of COVID-19 look at like the symptoms of malaria, and so everybody was like treating themselves for malaria. So I guess it was the treatment of that that really helped. I guess, I am not so sure, that really helped us to be able to personally, individually contain this. But at the point, people, the conspiracy theory, people thought that the government were not sincere. How can they be releasing us to go out and for us to retrieve ourselves back? And we have to now look at how to contain this thing personally. And so it now became, initially when it started, it was the government's responsibility. Now along the line, it became individual responsibility to be able to contain this ourselves. So I understand the questions you're trying to raise due to what has happened and compared to what has also happened in other places.
Well, thank you again, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now. We really are very, very grateful to Dr. Jeff Agbula and to Dr. Ali. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day at crazy hours. And we really are greatly appreciative. And this was very, very wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you too.
Thank you.